From Silent Night to Jingle Bells, Christmas carols are some of the most familiar and beloved songs of the season, and some of the oldest. Stephanie Sy explores why, even as popular music changes with the times, these classics have endured.
To help us dig into why Christmas carols have stood the test of time, I'm joined by Ariana Wyatt, a professor of voice at Virginia Tech. Ariana, it's great to have you on the NewsHour. You know, there are very few things that haven't changed over the years, and Christmas carols are one of them. In fact, as I was reading, I understand that some of them date back 2,000 years to the birth of Christ. Is that right?
It's really remarkable, in fact, that our first Christmas carol is really proclaimed in the gospel, the Angel's Hymn, or Gloria in Excelsis Deo, which is a carol that we sing today in many different versions and have over the last 2,000 years.
I read that that's because angels were viewed as biblically sort of singing, that was the biblical interpretation of what was happening.
Yes, that's correct. Scholars interpret that saying as singing. And there's a lot of other references to singing and praising with music, with song in the gospel. So it makes sense that the angels would have been singing that.
My favorite Christmas carol is O Holy Night. And there are other carols that start with this expression, "Oh," right? "Oh, come, let us adore him." Talk about the "Oh" carols.
Yeah, it's really a fun thing. So in the 8th century, they made in the liturgy a series of antiphons that were in preparation for the birth of Christ. So they were during the period of Advent. And there were 7 specific ones that led up to December 24th. So the last would be performed on December 23rd. And they all started with O. O, and then a name for God. So you had 7 of them. And the last was O Emmanuel, or O come, Emmanuel. And it's really interesting because if you reverse the order of the Latin of all of those O named for Christ, all 7, it spells Ero Cras, Erocras, which means I will come tomorrow.
Now, speaking of the Latin, in the Middle Ages, you know, not a lot of people were speaking Latin. How did it become accessible when Latin itself was not particularly well known at the time of these carols?
So it wasn't until the 12th century when St. Francis of Assisi in Italy started to introduce the vernacular into the Christmas story. And so he would take these Christmas hymns and put the verses in the vernacular, which would have been Italian where he was. And then the choruses remained in Latin. And that allowed people to start to connect with the story. So previous to this, these hymns were not popular. They didn't connect with them. They didn't understand what the story was.
Do we know anything about the melodies and how they've evolved?
We assume that some of these melodies date back to celebrations about the winter solstice, which predate Christianity. And so they would take these folk tunes and they would put on new words that were around the Christmas story. And they are gradually put into the repertory and passed down through oral tradition, both by just singing to your own children, but also by groups of traveling musicians who would go from town to town and kind of sing these various songs.
That's extraordinary. Speaking of speaking to children, I used to sing Silent Night to my babies as a lullaby. Is Silent Night one that dates back pretty far?
It's actually one of the more recent ones. Recent is a subjective term when we're talking about 2,000 years of history, of course, but it dates to 1818 and it was composed in Austria. Then it was brought to the United States in 1839 and performed for the first time in New York City at Trinity Cathedral. And from there, it kind of took on a world of its own. There's a great story of the Christmas truce of 1914 during World War I, where German and American troops sang that hymn together from across the trenches in their respective languages, because it remains one of our shared Christmas carols.
World War II also gave us some really emotionally powerful Christmas songs. What was happening in America at that time that led to songs like White Christmas?
Yeah, there's two large things. First, we have the invention of recorded sound.
A date which will live in infamy.
That was a huge change to music and how music is transferred and shared across continents, really. And so we have for the first time the ability to share music out over the radio, share music that can be purchased and listened to at home, which is really remarkable, and it was really changed everything at the time. But also, we have two major world wars that happened in the 20th century. And as a result of that, after World War II, we have a real economic boom in the United States. And so we see a new genre of Christmas music emerge that is really a contemporary commercial Christmas music. And it has legs because we can record it and then we can broadcast it.
Of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know.
The first one that we really look to is White Christmas, which was broadcast for the first time on the radio on Christmas Day in 1941, which was just 18 days after Pearl Harbor. And of course, that song is built in nostalgia, is built in hope for Christmas's future, in nostalgia for Christmas's past. And of course, the nation was reeling, as was the world at the time, in the middle of a world war. And it really spoke to people, which is why it continues to speak to people today.
That is Ariana Wyatt with Virginia Tech. Ariana, thank you so much and happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Go hear some music.
Wait just a second. We have one more thing to share.
We want to say a heartfelt thank you for watching and supporting PBS News.
Without you, we simply wouldn't be able to provide the news and the information that you trust.
So thank you from everybody here at PBS News.
Support journalism you trust. Support PBS News. Donate now, or even better, start a monthly contribution today.